let's just say I might have found a candidate for one of the top 6 worst episodes. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk. I'm here to talk to you about Disenchantment, or more specifically, the episode Love's Slimy Embrace. Regardless of how devoted you are to a fandom, there's bound to be episodes you dislike for one reason or another, and there's always that one episode you can't stomach. Considering how much I critique Disenchantment, you're probably wondering what my least favorite episode is. Well, the answer might surprise you. It's Hey Pig Spender. Actually, that's probably my second least favorite, and I'm discussing that episode when I finally do my Murker video. So how do I summarize Love's Slimy Embrace? Do you remember the episode where Derek befriends a sea monster that goes wild, and Zog gives himself the gout? Well, let me take you down memory lane. To give a little background, I totally forgot this episode existed. I only remembered what it was about after I did a re-binge for part 2, and rewatching it, I can kinda get why my mind repressed it. Basically, it has to do with the main problems of part 2. Part 2's biggest problem was the plot, or their unwillingness to dip their toes and commit to more interesting storylines. The first 3 episodes present super interesting potential, or they solve major obstacles in 2 seconds flat. Then comes the next few episodes, where nothing major happens. Some of it ranges from interesting, to relatable, to hilarious, to outright filler. They're not all bad, but a lot of them feel like slaps in the face, knowing what part 3 showed we could have gotten. This episode, for lack of a better word, is super forgettable, to the sponge who could fly levels of forgettable. It felt like a part 1 plot they reused for part 2, and I would have appreciated this episode more if it aired during part 1, you'll see. On top of that, it really feels like an incomplete first draft, like something's missing. So let's discuss, shall we? This episode begins with Bean and her friends hanging out with Derek in the throne room, and by with Derek, I mean Derek just happens to be there. A fourth wheel to the tricycle. That is, until Zog walks in. He's hosting the Duke of Twinkletown, so he expects his whole family to be there. Of course, Bean refuses, and goes down to Lucy's tavern for a drink, with Derek following, and Bean trying her hardest to win the award for Best Half-Sister of the Year.
No.
No. Scram!
No, you are not coming. Eric, go home. Bad brother. Walk around and pretend you're not irritating.
Isn't Derek a teenager? Aren't teens usually not allowed at bars because there'll be alcohol there? Or if they are allowed, it's only to eat food or get takeout? Yeah, Bean is acting like a jerk, but she does have a right to tell him no. I don't really know how to feel about this. At Lucy's tavern, Bean vents about Derek. We find out the reason why Bean is so infuriated is because Derek displaced her as heir. In part 1, it's established that as a woman, Bean is a walking uterus her dad can sell. Derek, on the other hand, is gonna be king one day, just on the virtue of his birth, and be allowed to do whatever he wants.
From then on, Derek was heir to the throne, and he got to do all the cool stuff I wanted to do.
Bean wanted nothing more than to play swords and ride horses, but instead she's stuck curtsying and riding Bunty.
Don't worry, Mom. When the revolution comes, we'll rise up and kill you all.
Bean being so resentful of Derek would make more sense in part 1, considering the early installment weirdness. I think the point of the episode was to give cause for Derek condemning Bean to the stake, but he probably would have done it without this episode. He was a puppet king after all.
I know it's not his fault, but I just wish he would die.
In part 2, Bean made peace with Una. You'd think she'd make peace with Una's son, or at least try to treat him better. This episode does say that Derek is lonely now that Una's gone,
But I get ever so lonely with Mama gone.
but wouldn't he be lonely in part 1, mom or not? He probably doesn't get to spend that much time with his sister, or any quality time with his parents. We never see Una and Derek do anything meaningful. Besides, I doubt he has any friends his own age. I could easily see part 1 Derek pining for his sister's attention. Upset at being ignored, Derek goes to the ocean. And if you can give this episode anything, is that the visuals look really nice. Derek wishes for a friend, and gets exposition on how sad he is.
And Bean hates me because I'm going to be king. And I don't even know if I want that, but I can't talk to anyone about it, especially Dad.
And that's where we get the titular Slimy.
Oh, well, hello, little guy. Will you be my friend?
Now this could be a cool plot, but they never really build on the bond between Derek and Slimy. He and Slimy never spend any actual time together on screen. They get maybe one scene, and yet Derek treats it like they're BFFs.
So how long have you known him?
Oh, he's my oldest friend. 4 days.
Usually we get a montage or a scene, but we don't get that. And Derek has some major Dulcinea effect.
I wish you were my sister.
He says that, but in context of the scene, he's known Slimy for less than 30 seconds. Seriously, Derek needs to see a therapist. He must have some horrible attachment issues. But first, let's get to Zog's subplot, which the episode really could have done without. During dinner, he and the Duke are acting generally rude to one another.
It must be nice to eat with such abandon.
How about a little more goat head? Let me cut you a nice hunk with some hat.
I'm just saying the Duke is a jerk, but I think he kind of earned that right.
May I trouble you for a fork?
I'm sorry, but the king is using it.
At the end of the visit, Zog learns the Duke has gout.
Gout, a disease of kings, you know. Successful kings, that is.
Zog goes to Sorcerio, who rightfully refuses to infect Zog with a painful, deadly disease.
Nobody lives for very long these days. How old are you?
31.
Ooh, boy.
Okay, that was funny. Good thing Zog has the family cat, who loves to pump the arteries.
But helping a human overindulge to the point of illness? I think you could be my masterpiece.
Okay, time for my little rant. Believe it or not, yes, gout used to be considered the disease of kings. You can track gout by eating greasy foods, and meats, and lots of alcohol. Being overweight or obese generally doesn't help. Since the rich, especially the king, were the only people who could afford to gorge themselves, or the only ones who had steady access to meat, obesity and other such afflictions were viewed as rich people diseases.
A plump, disease-riddled body is a sign you've really made it in modern society.
It's cool to use history as a basis. This doesn't make what happens any less disgusting. In a bacon-wrapped nutshell, this episode is about Zog trying to give himself a disease, which is depicted in its super repulsive glory. Yes, gout used to historically affect the rich, especially kings. You know what other diseases existed back then? Dysentery, bubonic plague, smallpox. Imagine an episode of Bean trying to give herself dysentery, and we see it on screen. And the methods Zog uses to contract gout are downright revolting.
It's a bacon-wrapped cigar, you fat tub of lard.
This is what got me to review the episode. I think I have to play a clip of The Simpsons.
But Dad, my heart hurts. Oh. Oh.
Why does this gross me out? Well, Disenchantment really isn't a show known for being gross. Stuff like illnesses are generally off screen or they're toned down. It's so difficult to watch Zog balloon up, to the point of needing a wheelchair to get places. And the fact he's so proud of being in pain doesn't make it a crosses the line twice joke. In his defense, it's not a season-long plot point like him going insane was. He's back to normal by the next episode. Still doesn't help. Nonetheless, there is one plot point I do like. Elva realizes Derek is lonely, so he goes to spend time with him, and the two get along pretty well. It sucks no other episode really touches on it.
A near mortal blow.
Victory!
I also do have to give them this. They foreshadow the thing with the Trogs all the way back in this episode.
I think this is how the rats get into my room at night.
On the beach, Elfa and Derek are playing swords, and they're spotted by Slimy, who thinks Elfa was gonna hurt Derek. If you couldn't guess, this makes him angry. And it turns out Slimy isn't a tiny octopus, he's a big one. The Duke is impressed by the fact that Zog is bedridden, and he reveals the next stage of gout. Thank you, modern medicine. Just an FYI, this is never followed up on. I don't know if that's good or bad. As the Duke is leaving, he gets killed by Slimy, even if he did nothing to hurt Derek. And the castle is on high alert.
Oh, Artie's a good guy once you get to know him.
Where is Oddball while this is going down? You know, Oddball, Zog's right-hand man, he up and disappears in a puff of smoke. Is he going to the Cookie Club bingo night? Wouldn't Audie bring Sorcerio? Eventually, Slimy gets his tentacles on Derek.
Derek!
They rescue Derek and make it to the surface. And the episode ends. I mean, there's a little bit more with a party barge captain.
And 'tis the immutable law of the sea that a captain must go down with his ship. Still, I don't think we need to be sticklers about it.
But the episode's just suddenly over. I said it before, and I'll say it again. This feels like a first draft. Like, there's a huge chunk we're missing. First off, I didn't say it before, but Derek curses a lot in this episode.
What the hell is that? What are you, high?
Feels kind of weird considering he's pretty polite. Second, Bean is super unlikable, and not at all sympathetic. I'm not Bean's biggest fan, but they really make her a bully in this episode.
He thinks he's got it so tough because his mom works. Cry to me when your mom tries to bolt a crown to your skull.
Her rescuing Derek does not redeem her.
Derek, I'm so sorry I treated you the way I did. This is not the way I wanted you to die.
Third, we miss a huge chunk of bonding with Derek and Slimy. I think that's why the episode is so forgettable. In episodes with side characters, they're usually well developed. I can remember the episode where Bean meets Gwen and her adopted kids because they put a somewhat unique spin on a classic fairy tale. What more is there to Slimy besides he's an octopus? That he likes Derek? Why does he like Derek? What do we get instead? I think the intention was to get Zog out of the plot, so Bean could rescue her brother instead, but there's other ways to do it. Lastly, nothing gets resolved besides Bean rescuing Derek. The Duke says Zog is gonna lose his leg, but nothing really comes of it besides shock value. And there's one more thing. One more measly, teeny thing I forgot to mention. Slimy's still alive. What's really gonna stop him from going on a rampage next time?
He wondered how long until he would feel another's arms wrapped around him.